Okay, so we are on page 136. We discussed last week about prophecy and if non-Jews can prophesy. And we're going to continue a similar topic, but no longer about conversion or prophecy, but about the next world and the afterlife. Rabbi Yonatan Halevy writes, "Vayudim ahem asher arvu lacha kvar kadmu chachmenu lesaper gan eden vegehenom." Regarding those savory afterlife rewards of the other religions, which our Torah does not examine explicitly, our rabbis have already discussed the afterlife of the Garden of Eden and Gehinnom. People say Gehenim, but in Jewish literature it's written Gehinnom or Gehinnom, but Gehinnom. Umadedu otam laorech v'larochav, and they've already graphically detailed their entire length and breadth. V'sipur ha'neimut v'yisurin, and they spoke about the pleasures and the tortures of the afterlife. I'm just translating the way it's in the English here. Bioter ma shesipur shar ha'omot ha'krovot, they even spoke about it more in detail than the more recent religions. V'dibarti imcha ad ata, and I spoke to you now al ma sheba b'mikra b'divrei nevi'im. The reason I didn't mention to you about the afterlife until now, says Rabbi Yonatan Halevy to the rabbi, he says, I didn't mention it to you because we were only talking about that which is explicitly written inside of the Torah. כי לא נזכר בהם יהודי העולם הבא והרבה בביאור כאשר נזכר הרבה דברי חכמים, והאמת הוא, says that even though the words of our rabbis are obviously true, our rabbis discussed the afterlife much more than the Torah explicitly discussed, and therefore I waited until now, meaning I can't start talking about things that don't have a hard source in the Torah. So he waited until now to discuss these things. And I think here's an important point. And that is that we have to make sure when we discuss things with people, especially about our Yahadut, that we know what we're talking about. Mama. And not just that we know what we're talking about, that we know the importance of the things we talk about. I was somewhere recently and they mentioned halakha to me, this, that, and I said, it's not a halakha. I mean, you may have said, I've never heard it in my life. And they opened up, and it's not a halakha, it's something that's a custom from some place, somewhere. But when they have, for many years before they bumped into me, have told people, this is a halakha, this is a halakha, nothing here stringent, just some random thing that Jews do. It doesn't make it a halakha. When we talk to people, we have to know, what are we talking that's biblical? What are we talking about that's rabbinic? When I want to teach Kabbalah to people, am I at least aware of the fact that not all Jewish communities accepted this teaching as authoritative? And if I don't work on that premise, then I'm fooling the person on the other side. Not all Jewish communities will subscribe to this belief. And to the contrary, the more, call it rationalist, I don't like that word, of the Jewish communities that don't subscribe to those beliefs, their beliefs might also not be the most mainstream of the Jewish beliefs. But you have to give people the important picture. And I think a lot of times when I see what they choose to teach people who are beginning to study Judaism, most of what's studied is never going to be the real basics, the things that everyone needs to know. Rather, it's all kinds of other things. How many Jews in the Jewish community? Tanakh, I think people study, and I'll tell you what I mean by people study. They don't study it properly. But everybody says the parasha. Parasha, you go to the synagogue, you see the parasha. This I'm not talking about. How many Jews in the intelligent Jewish community have ever opened up a Shulchan Aruch? A real, not a code of Jewish law, an abbreviation, a real Shulchan Aruch. How many even own? Do you know that when I moved to San Diego, my books were still coming from Israel, I needed to borrow, someone asked me a halakha question, I needed a Shulchan Aruch. I won't embarrass people, but I could not find in this entire neighborhood one copy of the Shulchan Aruch. Nobody. One person had, after weeks of looking. One person had a son who had once studied for smicha, and they had an old set of Shulchan Aruch they left behind. No.
I have a 4-item set. Is that the whole thing? Or
that's not the. That's the abbreviated version of Shulchan Aruch.
First version.
Now the reason why most people don't have it is either because it's irrelevant to them or because it's hard to open it up and study on their own. They'd rather a book that's easier to use. That's fine, but that's a basic. Before someone studies for me the writings of the Hasidic movement, which are 300 years older, the writings of Kabbalah, which at the very best are 500, 600 years old as the way they were revealed to the Jewish community, the standard books, Rambam. Baruch Hashem, they've done a very good job in making the Rambam accessible to the English-speaking community. But I don't know how a person can go to sleep at night and not have a set of the Rambam. Even a little tiny, like I have a little small set. How do you not have? How does a person not have access to the greatest code of Jewish law that was ever written? Now that they even have a Hebrew-English translation that I've used sufficiently, and I can say that it's very decent. It's very well done. So he's saying, I didn't tell you any of these things because those were not universal until today. Those were not things that you needed to know about. But now we're already this deep in our relationship, we can start talking about some of the things that... It's amazing if you think about how many years we've been learning Kuzari. The fact that these next few pages that we're going to read together, and it's the end, by the way, we're the end of the first essay. We have maybe 2 pages left.
Oh, wow.
I don't know if you noticed.
Wow.
You're right. Yeah.
We have 2 pages left to the end of the first essay.
So give it about another year and we'll
Started
make us see
November
you.
2012.
And we'll be on
November
the
2012?
Wow.
Wow, look at that.
It was a 2012, really?
So how many years have we learned together? 5 years?
2012?
4.5 years.
4.5 years.
Wow.
4.5 years. I'll tell you the topic. We're going to talk now about the afterlife, about Gan Eden, about Gehenom, about rewards, about punishments. This he waited 4.5 years to talk about. Like he didn't wait. He waited 137 pages. It wasn't the beginning of his book. Today I hear some people talk about the souls and the spirits and the afterlife and Mashiach, and they don't even know the first 137 pages. Questions like, what exactly happened in Har Sinai? Question, what exactly do we believe in and do we not believe in? How do we compare to the other world religions? Questions that people need to know before they reach topics that are esoteric and theoretical. The other religions, though, they talk a lot about the afterlife. It's almost an obsession. And in other religions, this is like a big topic of discussion. Islam, for example. Christianity, we all know what they talk about, the heaven and hell is Islam. I once heard an imam speak, not in real person. I didn't go to services, but online. And he spoke in English, so it wasn't. Many times they have like someone speaking in Arabic and it's a translation. I don't know if I can trust the translation or not. But definitely, this was in English. He was talking about the next world, about all kinds of food that they're gonna eat. Name like your top 10 favorite restaurants and their favorite dishes. There he was talking about them in detail. What's going to be the next world? If you do this, you're going to get your favorite ribeye steak with the same dressing that you always... And I think this is a religious spokesperson. Then he goes talk about the drinks they're going to have. All kinds of drinks and all kinds of fresh squeezed pomegranate juice and who knows what he was... And then he went on to discuss physical pleasures that he spoke about. And I can't believe that there were people who in a religious setting allowed their religious leader to speak about sexuality so graphically and not in any kind of holy light, but if you do this, this is what you're going to get. Unbelievable things. You have a person who's a feminist who has a problem with my religion, I'm going to send them over there first. And essentially, if you look at the promises that Islam offers its followers as a religion, it's very, very obvious that these are the fantasies of a Middle Eastern man in the time of Muhammad. Just put it on paper. If you what this Middle Eastern ignoramus. I'm not talking here about the spiritual philosophers of Islam. Your average guy living in this Middle Eastern desert. What does he want? This is everything that Islam promises you. You take a 14-year-old kid out of high school and ask him everything that you'd ever want, don't tell your parents. And I'm going to make a religion that's going to promise you all of this. This is essentially what happens. In Judaism, we have to make a very big differentiation between what Tanakh actually promises us in the afterlife and what the Tanaim and the rabbis afterwards added. Not in addition. It's not that the Torah doesn't believe in these things and our rabbis invented them, but rather the Torah didn't believe in talking about them. You have the books of the Midrash and the Agadah and all these books that have many discussions about the next world. Rabbi Saadia Gaon. Have you heard of Rabbi Saadia Gaon? Rabbi Saadia Gaon was a generation before the Rambam. This is the generation of the Gaonim. That's why he's called Gaon. someone always the Vilna Gaon. The Vilna Gaon was not part of the generation. He was a few hundred years ago. And why he had the title is very interesting. But the rabbis who have the title Gaon, this is where they come from. He writes that the reason why the Torah didn't bother itself to talk to you about what's going to happen to the neshama in the afterlife is because it's irrelevant. Everyone knows the neshama is going to live on to the next world. Like we mentioned the other week, a soul is not going to die when a body dies. It's going to go back to the creator of all souls. That's obvious to a person who believes in souls. What's not so obvious to a person who believes in souls is that your soul can have an effect in this world. You'll notice the Torah, when it talks about reward and consequence, almost always talks to you about this world. You should live long and be happy, so you should do this, so this should happen to you. The Torah talks to you about this world. Says Rav Saadia Gaon, if you want to imagine reward and consequence in the next world, anything you can imagine is not such a big deal. But to tell me that because of the way a community acts or doesn't act, rain is going to fall or it's going to be a famine, that plague is going to come or we're going to be safe, that terrorist attacks will happen or they won't happen, to tell me that my soul has direct influence on this world, because that's what the Torah is talking so much about. It's not that the Torah doesn't believe in an afterlife. In an afterlife, whatever your imagination wants to think of could be possible. In this world, though, to say that your neshama has power in this world, that's a big deal. That's the chidush. But let's not get ourselves wrong. The Torah does talk about afterlife. In Bereshit, in Shmuel Aleph, it talks about different things. The soul passed away, that the body died and the soul left. And then it continues. כי בדברי נבואה in my Hebrew text, the period is 2 words earlier. In my Hebrew it says ve'emet hu ki b'divrei hanivua. It is true that in the words of the prophets, this is what it says. But in this Hebrew, it says that our rabbi spoke about this ve'emet hu, and their words are true. I don't know who got a version from where and why the Arabic, where they put the period, who put the period. I don't know which translation is which, but I'm just sharing that with you. כי בדברי נבואה, in the words of our prophets, שישוב האפר שבגוף האדם על הארץ ותשוב הרוח אל אלוהים אשר נתנה. Scripture does say that the earthly elements within man's body shall return to the earth, and that his spirit will return to Hashem who gave it to him. And he brings you a lot of beautiful sources that if you want to look into in your own time, they're worth it. ובדברי נבואה תחיית המתים לעתיד, in the words of our prophets, it talks about the resurrection of the dead, ושליחת הנביאים, the sending of a prophet. What is the sending of a prophet? I'll explain to you in just a minute what I mean by the sending of a prophet. Shmo Eliyahu, his name is going to be Eliyahu. Kvar shulach b'zman ha'over, he was already sent to us in the past. Ulkacho ha'elohim kasher lukach zurato, and Hashem took him from us, just like he took away others. Shehu lo ta'am tam mitah, that he did not ever taste the taste of death. I have to interject here. In the Lithuanian Talmud Yeshiva world, the passing of Eliyahu is a very complicated halachic situation. There are 2 ways that a woman is able to be remarried if she was married. She becomes single in one of 2 ways. What's the first way?
Yeah.
Her husband gives her a get, right? He writes a divorce contract and he divorces her. The second?
The husband died.
Her husband dies.
Yeah.
So there's a famous, in the early days of the Reform movement in Europe, there were many Jews who unfortunately left traditional Judaism and they weren't becoming Reform as you know today. It was an enlightenment movement of Jews just radically dropping everything religious and mocking that religion. There was in Rabbi Akiva Eger's community, there was a man who had become a heretic, and his wife was still a very pious woman. Many families were torn apart in the days of this movement, worse than what you think of today. And he decided to live a totally non-Jewish lifestyle, and she wanted to leave. He said, but I need a get, and he wouldn't give her a get. After months and months of trying to get him to give her a get, he wouldn't do it. So they brought her to Rabbi Akiva Eger. They brought Rabbi Akiva Eger, and Rabbi Akiva Eger told her, tell your husband to come speak with me. The husband doesn't want to talk to any rabbi, just want to speak with me. So tell him to come speak with me. So they summoned, and listen, Rabbi Akiva Eger says to come. He said, okay, he'll give it a chance. Okay, maybe he can even make fun of a rabbi in his face. That would be a nice opportunity. So he comes to Rabbi Akiva Eger, and Rabbi Akiva Eger pulls out a Mishnah. And he says a woman is divorced in one of two ways. Either by the giving of a get or by the death of a husband. He says, which one do you prefer? He started laughing. He said, oh, come on, Rabbi. Who do you think you are? You think you're a Superman? He walked out and he dropped dead under the Kiva Eger's doorstep. One of two ways. So this question is, Eliyahu Navi's wife, would she have been able to remarry? I mean, what constitutes death? Is it the fact that a person is no longer in this world? Or is it, he uses a word here, ta'am mita. Is it a ma'aseh mita? Is it an act of death? I mean, Eliyahu Navi left this world, but to say that he died would be inaccurate. So does one have to die in order for his wife to be single? Or does he just have to leave this world?
It's so interesting.
According to the one who says that it has to be an actual act of death, Eliyahu Navi's wife will never be able to remarry. Whereas if it was just anything that means that he's no longer here, then that's okay. He didn't have to actually die. Hashem could have taken him away, and that's enough. What's the practical ramification of the scenario? I don't know. I'm not sure but it's a splitting of a hair. That's what they do in yeshiva from the morning until the night. But what it causes you to think of is, don't assume that death always means the same thing. Death could mean other things. Or it can't. Depends on how you want to define death. ויש בתורה תפילת מי שיתנבא ברוח אלוהים שיתפלל לעצמו שימות מות ישרים. Furthermore, the Torah contains the prayer of a prophet who prophesied with the spirit of Hashem and prayed for himself that he should die the death of the upright. Who was he talking about here? Who prayed this prayer? Which prophet? Bilam. Don't think he was one of our prophets. Bilam. But there's
He
either
wants to die like a
Rabbi Yonatan Halevy is omitting his name because he doesn't want to mention him, or he's omitting his name because he doesn't think it's relevant. Why should he tell the king about something he doesn't even know about? There was a prophet who said, he wanted his death to be the ending of like that of the Jewish people. You should know, Mot Yesharim. The Baal Turim does a gematria over there that comes out to the names of Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. He wanted to die the death of those who were straightforward, which were the forefathers. They're always referred to as the Yisharim.
But according to how he writes it here, you could think that he means someone Jewish.
Correct. And we're going to talk in just a minute about Bilam versus other people. Was Bilam really a bad prophet, or he was just not our prophet? It's an interesting... we're going to have this discussion now, actually. Ukvar Sha'al...
He wasn't a bad, positive
I would say
person.
it was a bad prophet.
You're right, but the Gemara refers to him as Moshe Rabbeinu's equal.
Yeah, right. He was a great prophet, but it doesn't mean that...
He was a good prophet. Okay, what you're saying is more than what... Maybe you know more than
Like,
what you're saying. But
professionally, he was...
he's a professional prophet, but not a... There's truth what you're saying, and we're going to talk about it in a minute. I'm going to read you this next story, but I don't know that I'm going to have time to talk about it this week. I will definitely talk about it next week because it's fascinating. The story here of Shaul HaMelech. It's a crazy story. And there are three different opinions on how to understand the story. We're going to go through all three of them next week. And they have practical application to the world that we live in today. וכבר שאל אחד מהמלכים נביא מת. Already one of our kings, Shaul, asked one of the dead prophets, that was Shmuel, ויתנבא לו בכל מה שיבוא עליו כאשר היה מתנבא לו בחייו. And he prophesied all that would happen to Shaul in the future, the same way he had prophesied for him when he was alive. We'll talk about that story. Shaul needs to ask Shmuel a question. Shmuel is not allowed to ask the question. He goes to a person who performs call it a seance for the lack of a better word. And he brings back the spirit and talks to Shmuel, and Shmuel answered him. And even though that king's action was forbidden according to our Torah, you're not allowed to do such things. So I mean to say, asking the dead, הוא מורה כי היו העם מאמינים בימי הנביאים כנפשות נשארות אחר כלות הגופות. That it does show though that the people of that generation did believe that the soul lives on afterwards. I mean, that was the assumption. ועל כן היו שואלים המתים, and therefore they reached out to the dead. Shaul is a fascinating story. I'm going to start though with Bilam. I'm going to start with Eliyahu Navi. This Eliyahu Navi, the verse that he's referring to here, in the book of Malachi, it says, Hinei anochi sholech lachem et Eliyahu Hanavi. I will send you Eliyahu, the prophet. Eliyah doesn't say Eliyahu, it says Eliyah. Lifnei bo yom Adonai gadol v'anoah. Before the coming of the days of Hashem. This is a book called Tanat Devei Eliyahu. It's a book that according to Jewish was written by Eliyahu Hanavi.
And it's in English now, right?
There are parts of it that are in English. I think you found something in English.
Yeah.
Alright, it says Eliyahu Hanavi here. B'sha'ah she'akadosh Baruch Hu go'el et Yisrael. At the moment that Hashem decides to redeem the Jewish people. 3 yamim kodem she'yavo Mashiach. 3 days before the Mashiach will come. Okay. This is what I'm referring to. B'sha'ah she'akadosh Baruch Hu go'el et Yisrael. The moment that Hashem decides to redeem the Jewish people. 3 yamim kodem she'yavo Mashiach. 3 days before Mashiach comes. Ba Eliyahu. Eliyahu the prophet comes. V'omed al harei Yisrael. He'll stand in the mountains of Israel. Uvochel maspid alehem. He'll cry and eulogize them. V'omer lehem harei Eretz Yisrael. You mountains of the land of Israel. Ad matai etem omdim be'eretz tzia u'shmama. How long will you stand in a barren wasteland? V'kolo nishma misof ha'olam v'ad tzafon. His voice is heard from one side of the world to the next. V'achar kach omer lehem. And then he tells them, Ba shalom la'olam. Peace will come to the world. Ba shalom la'olam. Peace will come to the world. Shema מה לבוא על ההרים רבסר ושלום וסרטו וששועה אומר לצום מלאך אלוהיך כיוון שמעו רשעים הם שמחים ואומר זה לזה בא שלום לנו. The evil people hear this and say, oh, peace is coming to us. It's strange. ביום שני בא ועומד על הרי ישראל. On the second day they come and he stands at the mountains of Israel ואומר בא טובה לעולם, בא טובה לעולם. Good will come to the world, good will come to the world. Yom HaShlishi, Bav U'Medar Yitzhak, he stands on the third day. The Hanavi has a whole series of things that he does 3 days before Mashiach comes. He calls out to the Jewish people, calls out to the world. You find that before Mashiach comes, Eliyahu will return to the world. This is the Midrash is playing off of this verse here. The Hanavi continues as Shanu Rabbeinu, our rabbis taught, בשעה שמלך המשיח בא, in the moment that the Melech HaMashiach will come, ועומד על גג בית המקדש, he will stand on the roof of the temple. What do you learn from here? The temple would be built already. Kehillat always says this. Before the Mashiach comes, the temple would already have been rebuilt.
It will be
So
standing.
people, let's wait till Mashiach. Now, is there an opinion like that? There is an opinion like that. But there are many obvious places in the Tanakh and in the Midrashim that say explicitly that the Beit HaMikdash will be rebuilt before the return of Mashiach. He'll come and stand on the roof of the temple. I mean, the Jews had already answered the call and built the temple, and that's when the Mashiach comes. So 3 days might not actually be 3 days. It might be a period of time which Eliyahu Hanavi kind of brings an awakening into the world, and then the Beit HaMikdash is built. But you find that according to the Tanat of Eliyahu, this return of Eliyahu Hanavi himself is literally this way. This is how it's going to happen. And even though it doesn't say Eliyahu Hanavi, Rabbi Yonatan Halevy understands Eliyah and Eliyahu are the same person. Kind of like Chizkiah and Chizkiyahu and Yeshaya and Yeshayahu. They're all the same person. They're just one with an extra vav and one without. The Rambam doesn't. No, listen, you could say this is a reading into the Rambam, but the Rambam, it's not so obvious that's the way the Rambam reads this. The Rambam writes in the Laws of Mashiach. It says, Yireh mipshutan shedivrei neviim. It appears from the simple understanding of the words of the prophets. Shebetchilat yemot HaMashiach, that in the beginning of the days of Mashiach, Tiyeh melchemet Gog u'Magog. There'll be a war of Gog u'Magog. V'shekodem melchemet Gog u'Magog, and before the war of Gog u'Magog, Yamon Navi, a prophet, will stand up, a prophet, Liyasher Yisrael, to straighten out the Jewish people, Ulhachin libam, and to prepare their hearts for the redemption. Shneimar, Hinei anochi sholach lachem et Eliyah. I am sending to you Eliyah. What is Eliyah? A prophet. And then he brings a second opinion, the Rambam. V'yesh min hachachamim she'omrim, some of our chachamim say, shekodem biyat HaMashiach yavo Eliyahu, that before the coming of Mashiach, Eliyahu Hanavi will come. So it's not obvious that you read Eliyah as Eliyahu. According to the Rambam, it might just be a prophet, someone who's aware of Eliyah, of my God, but not necessarily the Eliyahu Hanavi. when Bilam says that my ending shall be like the Yisharim, like the righteous of the Jewish people, what he's telling you is, and the Torah is condoning this belief, that there is something. What afterlife? He's about to die. So what is he talking about? My end should be. My end being the end that happens after this. There are many, many instances in our Gemara where people would come to the rabbis. Oh, rabbis, you made up the whole idea of Mashiach. It doesn't exist. It's not written in the books. It's not written in the Tanakh. If you look properly, you'll find such allusions to the next word. Bilam. Bilam is an interesting person in general. He's considered the Navi of Umot HaOlam, the prophet of the non-Jews. Bilam. How could Bilam be a prophet? It says, Lokam Navi od b'Yisrael k'Moshe. It says there never will come up a prophet like Moshe Rabbeinu. But it says there will never arise in Israel a prophet like Moshe Rabbeinu. The Midrash says, b'Yisrael, it's talking about the Jewish people. B'Yisrael lo kam. But, aval b'Umot HaOlam kam. B'Midbar, in the Midrash Rabban, B'Midbar, the rabbis tell us, in the non-Jewish world, there could be a prophet like Moshe Rabbeinu. That's a crazy thing. How on earth could you compare even Bilam to a person like Moshe Rabbeinu? We know that Moshe Rabbeinu is not even comparable to a human being, let an angel.
Come again.
The Midrash is saying there are certain things that are similar between Bilam and Moshe Rabbeinu. Certain similarities. There are some things that even Bilam was able to do that Moshe Rabbeinu was not able to do. And I don't mean this in a good way. When a person prophesies, they prophesy very specific things. Moshe Rabbeinu's prophecies are specific to the Jewish people. They're for the Jewish people to do. Not necessarily about the Jewish people. What do I mean? Bilam's entire prophecy is that of a person outside looking inside. He's talking about how beautiful the Jewish people are. Matovo lecha Yaakov, v'shkodecha Yisrael. How beautiful are your tents, Yaakov, dwellings, Israel. He's looking, and you could tell from his prophecy that he's an outsider. It's almost that Moshe Rabbeinu didn't prophesy such things because he was so much in the inside that he didn't have this view of watching the Jewish people from outside of the camp. So Bilam was able, so to speak, to do things that Moshe Rabbeinu wasn't able to do. Almost like I mentioned to you last week, I mentioned that Ovadiah was able to prophesy about Edom. He was a convert from Edom. And the reason he was able to prophesy about what happened to Edom, it was almost like Edom couldn't prophesy about themselves. They needed somebody to leave Edom, to look back at the people that he came from and say, I, as a person who left you, who's standing outside of you, can tell you about yourself. So, Bilam's prophecy, ironically, is more relevant to the Jewish people than it's relevant to the non-Jews that he was supposed to be prophesying to. There's another idea here about prophecy, and it's what Rachel mentioned. By the non-Jewish world, according to our teachings, there could be someone who's a professional prophet. See, prophecy in the non-Jewish world is a wisdom. What do you mean wisdom? Like you study math, so you can be a mathematician. Like you study zoology, you could be a zoologist. Like you study computer programming, so you can program computers. You just have to understand the workings of the spiritual world to be able to speak about it. Inside of Am Yisrael, it's much... What? Those... So I'm going to talk about this with Shaul. About this, those people, according to some opinions, they're just fakers. They're like when you go to Las Vegas and watch a magic show. According to some, there is a koch. They are connected to something. You know, Rabbi Nachman of Breslov even writes that there are mikubalim, so to speak, that they're not any kind of holy people. They understand the system, and because they understand the system, they can pick up on things. It's kind of like I can scan a police radio nowadays. They have scanners. You can scan a police. Doesn't make me a police officer just because I can scan the police radio, but I can tell you things that you don't know about what's going on in the police radios. Yeah, this is a similar concept. That to be a prophet in the non-Jewish world, you just have to be a person who understands the spiritual inner workings of the world. In Am Yisrael, it's not so simple. The Rambam has a list of criteria what it takes to be a prophet. You have to actually be a person who's from head to toe a musari person, an ethical person, a spiritual person, connected to HaKadosh Baruch Hu so completely that you're able to prophesy. There's a strange midrash, in that same midrash Bamidbar that I spoke to you about before. It says, Moshe lo yodea mi medaber imo. Moshe didn't know. When he was prophesying, he didn't know who was speaking to him. But Bilam haya yodea mi medaber imo. Bilam knew who was speaking to him. And it's a strange thing. Are you putting down Moshe Rabbeinu? Moshe Rabbeinu didn't know Hashem was talking to him? The understanding here that Rabbi Sharkey gives is that Moshe Rabbeinu was prophesying from something so great in such a high place that he didn't know who was prophesying with him. Bil'am, his prophecy wasn't a prophecy like Moshe Rabbeinu's. It was himself, his own neshama talking to him. It was a very low experience of prophecy. And therefore, what does it mean he knew who he was talking? He knew it was him that was talking to himself. You know, when Maran, Rabbi Yosef Karo has his book, Magid Mesharim, where the angel comes to talk to him. What is a Magid? A Magid is not even a prophecy. A Magid is essentially another soul that is talking to your soul. Now, that might be very high for us, right? But a person's own neshama can give themselves prophecy. And so this is a much lower level of nevuah than Moshe Rabbeinu had. Moshe Rabbeinu received his prophecy directly from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. There were no angels involved here, no spirits involved here, no neshamot involved here. So to say he didn't know who he was speaking to, because you're talking about Kucha Brichu, that nobody understands who is HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Now, I want to finish with Shaul because I don't want to wait till next week for Shaul. So just give me a few minutes. You know, you read Tanakh. I have many theories why the religious world doesn't study Tanakh. I think the most simple of them all, it's not really a theory, it's just because it's an issue that many of us have when we read Tanakh, as people who like reading Tanakh, is that it doesn't exactly match up with the Jewish narrative that we live today. There are things there that just look weird to us. That's not a Jewish thing to do.
Kind of depressing.
Yeah, okay, well, forget the depressing part. Like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. Like, these people saw Hashem and they're doing all these things. I'm talking the fact that when people tell me, well, cremation is not a Jewish thing. Do you know that Shaul HaMelech was cremated?
No.
It's explicit in the Tanakh like that. Yeah. Now, there are commentaries there.
He was cremated. He committed suicide first.
Oh, it's even better. The Tanakh tells us Shaul HaMelech fell on his own sword.
Yeah.
Now, there may be two different narratives going on in the book over there in Shaul telling you what happened. I'm not sticking my head here.
It's not in
What?
Right.
So we have, in fact, it's a famous old Sephardic curse about the enemies of the Jewish people. We always say, "Chabam tavo b'libam." Their sword should enter their own heart. Like they should fall on their own swords. And when our community started, that was the blessing our parents gave us. And this.
Well, at least you made it past the front door.
No, that's it. Over here with Shaul. And I'll tell you, there are commentators there that say they didn't burn him, they just burned his clothing. And clothing of the king is like burning the king. There are other commentators that say that because his body was so rotten, if you remember, it was out for a very long time before the Jewish people got his body back. And so it was not considered honorable anymore to bury such a body, but rather to burn it. You have in the Jews leaving Egypt, you remember? What do you mean the bones of Yosef? Yosef seemed to have been embalmed, like the Egyptians were. We don't do it, but certain things in Tanakh. How many wives some of our kings had, or how many the things there that would bother the average. I'm using this word, an average Orthodox Jewish reader, because it doesn't seem to fit in with our very European Jewish approach. It's a very Middle Eastern, biblical, deserts, shepherds, sheep, goats. It doesn't fit with us. And instead of saying, hey, we have to re-examine ourselves, we're trying always to re-examine the Tanakh and rearrange things so it will make more sense for us. And I think that is just very hard work, and people are afraid of hard work, and so they decide to learn things that are much more relevant to us. It's not even Tanakh. Forget Tanakh. It's like the Jewish community knows very little about the writings of the Rishonim, the early rabbis. Almost everything that I hear in a Jewish class comes from somebody who lived in the last 500 years. And the reason is because if we begin to familiarize ourselves with the world that was medieval Judaism, you'll come up with all kinds of things that you don't know what to do with. From the Rambam's extreme stances on certain issues of spirituality that we take so for granted, or books like Gershonides, the Ralbag, Rabbi Levi ben Gershom. He was the Ashkenazi version of the Rambam. Don't think same person, just in stature. He was a huge Jewish philosopher, and his whole approach was that of course Hashem has body parts. What do you mean? Torah says Hashem has an arm. Who are you? What kind of heretic are you to tell me that Hashem doesn't have an arm? Why do you think they burned the Rambam's books in Europe? You think it was just because they didn't like his philosophy about the afterlife? is because he said heretical things like Hashem doesn't have a body.
Heretical for the time.
For the time and for the place. It's not an accusation. This is just so when we teach Judaism, and today, Baruch Hashem, our approach to Hashem is very much Rambam oriented, and it could be the Kabbalists took us a few steps back in that regard, or at least the way Kabbalah is taught on the street has taken us a few steps back in that regard. But we're afraid of these things that are very different than what we're used to. Shaul HaMelech, and I brought a Tanakh here for you. It's in Shmuel Aleph. Why Shmuel Aleph? We don't have a Shmuel Aleph, but the Christians made 2 Shmuels. So the Jewish people accepted, especially in Europe, the standardization of the Christian Bible. So when we would debate with Christians, we would actually know, they would quote us, Genesis chapter 30, we don't know, we don't have chapters in Genesis, but they did. And so in order to do that, we took their numbers. This is in Shmuel Aleph, chapter 28. Shmuel had died. Shmuel met v'yispadu lo kol Yisrael. Shmuel the prophet had passed away, and the Jewish people eulogized him. V'yikberuhu barama u'v'iro, and they buried him in Ramah, in his hometown.
Did you say it was created?
Yeah.
No. Oh,
No,
Shmuel. This is
Shmuel.
Shaul.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
This is Shmuel. That was Shaul.
Oh.
V'Shaul hisir ha'ovot v'tedonim ha'aretz, and Shaul removed all the word is necromancers, all the people who spoke to the dead from the world. There was a war that was about to happen. The Plishtim decided to attack.
Al-Hanan asked if you could speak louder so you could hear you.
Okay. The Plishtim. The Plishtim were mobilizing to attack the Jewish people. Shaul tried reaching out to Hashem. He didn't answer him in a dream. Now with the Urim and Tumim. Now with the prophets. And Shaul didn't know what to do. He said, "Go find for me an Eshet Balat Ov, a woman who knows how to bring back the dead and speak to them." And his servants tell him, there is such a lady in Endo. And so he goes to this place, Endo. So Shaul, I'm reading to you in English for the time. Shaul disguised himself, he donned different clothing, he went taking 2 men with him. They came to the woman at night and he said to her, "Please divine for me through necromancy." Sometimes I need a dictionary for this book. "And raise up whomever I shall tell you." But the woman said to him, "Behold, you surely know that what Shaul has done. That he has eliminated the necromancers and you need diviners from the land. So why do you seek to entrap me, to have me killed?" Now she's talking to Shaul, but she doesn't know she's talking to Shaul. So they're trying to get me killed? I had a couple that was sitting at my table once, and they told me about how they got married in Russia. They had to look for a rabbi to marry them. And there were certain rabbis that still did weddings. People got married. But to find them, you had to approach them in the middle of the night, knock on the door, ask them, "Are you going to do a wedding?" And very often KGB agents would find these rabbis, and then when they would say yes, they would come arrest them and get them killed, send them off to the Russian gulag.
Yeah.
And very often the rabbis had to know who to answer to. Somebody said, "No, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't do weddings." And how do you know? How do you know who to trust? So she here is terrified that maybe these are spies for Shaul HaMelech. Shaul swore to her by Hashem, saying, "As Hashem lives, this thing will not be held against you as an iniquity." So he swears. And in the old world, when you swear about something, you meant it. You didn't swear in Hashem's name and just... Now it's funny that the old lady, so I'll call her, the old lady, she believes in Hashem enough to accept the vow on Hashem's name. The woman said, "Who shall I raise up for you?" And he says, "Raise up Shmuel for me." The woman then saw Shmuel and she screamed in a loud voice. She sees Shmuel and she's terrified. The woman said to Shaul, "Why did you deceive me? You are Shaul." The king then said to her, "Fear not, what did you see?" The woman said to her, "Shaul, I saw a great man ascending from the earth." He then said to her, "What does he look like?" She said, "An elderly man is ascending and he's garbed in a cloak." Shaul realized that it was Shmuel and he bowed down upon his face to the ground and prostrated himself. Shmuel said to Shaul, "Why did you disturb me to raise me up?" When we talk to the dead, not just like this. There's a letter that I have from Rabbi Yonatan Halevy. In old communities that I was once a rabbi, I didn't help. For our community, I'm very careful about this. When we say hashkava for a person who's deceased, El Malei Rachamim, The Ashkenazim are good about this. They only say by the Yortzeit. But the Sfaradim, they love to say Ashkamot whenever they just feel like it. And he says, when we disturb the soul of a person, when we're constantly trying to get him out of his state of rest, it's not a good thing. You don't want to mess with the Neshamot that left this world. On the Yortzeit, the week they passed away, the month they passed away, fine. But after that, only on the Yortzeit, we should say, El Melech for them, Ashkama for them. So why did you disturb me? Shaul replied, I'm in great distress, and the Plishtim are at war against me. Hashem has turned away from me and does not answer me anymore, neither through the hand of the prophets nor in dreams. So I called upon you to inform me what I should do. Shmuel delivers a prediction, and the rest is history. Literally. The question is, what happens in this story? The Torah tells us that you cannot do this. And Shaul himself is the one who executes this action of throwing out the Balei Ov from the land. So why is he, of all people, going back and doing this? So we find that he's in a state of distress. He really needs help. He doesn't know what to do. At a last resort, people do all kinds of things. I watched a documentary once about all the we should never know, not us, not anybody, about all the they call them snake oils, the fake treatments in the world for cancer. When people have no other choice, they are willing to do whatever it takes. And there are people who have made an entire business about taking advantage of people who have no other choice.
I think, is it true that had he waited one more day, Natan would have come? Is that true? No?
I don't think so.
I don't know.
Okay.
Because Natan Halevy was with David later on, and I don't know that
Okay.
Shaul was trying to figure out over here
What to do with the war.
what to do with the war.
Yeah, what to do with the war, yeah. Whether he would win or
I
lose.
thought there was
So when people are desperate, they'll do whatever it takes. The
was.
same way that people are desperate, they'll come back to the synagogue all of a sudden. They find the greatest atheists in the world. All of a sudden, when they need help, they come back to the B'tizan. Why? That could be they really don't believe. It could be. But it can't hurt. Always it can't hurt. People have this attitude of it can't hurt. And then people have necklaces like Magen Davids and crosses and crescent moons and all that. So did you make up your mind which one of these you believe in? It can't hurt. One of them is going to work, right? There's a certain mentality in the world. Shaul, I'm not asking why he did what he did. So it was forbidden. The question that the rabbis have is what, this vision that she saw, is it real? Is Hashem forbidding us from doing something that is real? Or is he forbidding us from doing this because it's not real and it's damaging to a person? Why did HaKadosh Baruch Hu forbid this? And you have three camps in Jewish philosophy, two extremes, and obviously the one that's in the middle. The first extreme is the Ramban, Rabbi Moshe ben Nachman, and I have a book from the Ramban called Shaar, where the Ramban argues with the Rambam on everything that has to do with the afterlife and the next world and reward and punishment, but it's by order, it's chapter by chapter. I once studied this when I used to pray in Baltimore, Yom Kippurim, the repetition of the Amidah in the Ashkenazi synagogue in Yom Kippurim, and I'm not talking about like your local Ashkenazi synagogue, like in a yeshiva where they pray 7 o'clock in the morning and ended after Yom Kippur ended, much after Yom Kippur ended. Straight, no breaks, I don't think there were any breaks. Just non-stop, ay. The whole, everything was slow and sad and it was crying. And so, the Amidah, it could be a 2-hour repetition of the Amidah. And it's crazy. So 2 hours, I have 2 hours to read. I'm going to do, everyone else standing up, I had a chair, I sat down, I took out a sefer, I learned. So there was a few Yom Kippurim and I finished this whole Shaar for Ramban. I don't understand half what I read, but the parts I did understand, I understood. The Ramban, here in Dvarim, the Ramban talks about this whole concept about Ov and Bechal. What is it? What does it mean? What does it do? The Ramban says it's forbidden to do such things, but they're true. There are powers in the world that exist that we're not allowed to utilize, that we're not allowed to tap into. And everything that he saw here, this is a real thing. I mean, the fact that Shaul HaMelech went to reach out to Ov is because he knew it was real, says the Ramban. But he knew that he wasn't allowed to do it, but what can you do? He didn't have a choice. You could justify it 1,001 ways to save a Jewish life, you could do whatever it takes, whatever rationalization you needed. But he believed in it, or else he wouldn't have gone to do it. I mean, Shaul HaMelech is the proof that Ov works. The Rambam, and perhaps before the Rambam, you may have ever heard this person before, Rabbi Shmuel Bar Chofni Gaon, otherwise known as Rabbi Shmuel Bar Chofni HaKohen. He was one of the Geonim. He was the rabbi of another Rabbeinu Hananel was one of his students on the side of the Talmud. Rabbeinu Bachaya, whatever you call him, he was one of his students. He and the Rambam both have a similar view. Now, Rabbi Shmuel was very much respected in the Muslim philosophical circles, and many of his philosophies are very similar to Islam. And like the Rambam, certain things that we share a lot to do with Islam according to this approach to the world. And the old philosophers of Islam and the rabbis used to study a lot together. Many things that are in common with us. And their view is all of this is a lie. It doesn't work. Nothing real. It's all achizat einayim. It's like you go to the David Copperfield show in Las Vegas and he does this and does that. And they're like, oh, how do you do it? It's incredible. Anybody who's a rationalist thinker knows this is all a very, very elaborate. It takes a lot of talent. It's not a joke. A very elaborate deception. And I think they use that word, the art of deception. In fact, there are two big atheists in the world today. And I happen to like them. I don't look at them. Penn and Teller, have you heard of them? They have magic shows. Yeah. They're also anything to do with atheism, they sign off on. They're atheist anarchists. This is their philosophy. And half of what they do is to show people they're some of the world's biggest experts in magic. And part of what they do in every show is to do a crazy magic trick and to show you how it's all done. And they break the rule of never reveal your secret because they want people to know that it's all play, it's all entertainment, it's not real. And you should know there's actually interesting, there are halachic books that are written, are you allowed to go to a magic show? Many poskim, especially the Sephardic ones, forbid, like bring a magician to a birthday party is forbidden according to the Torah, according to many Sephardic poskim. And the only exceptions you find to this rule, if the magician will show his tricks. If he'll show you, listen, there's just entertainment, and it's no different than a singer or a dancer. He's showing you, there's no mystical, but you have some magicians that they come and they have this whole narrative, the souls are speaking to me, and the borderline biblical prohibitions over here, if not blatant ones. And so they actually do a service to the world. As atheists as they might be, they help the religious community out, and that they show the secrets behind these tricks. The Rambam believes that everything that has to do here, the whole story here is fake. And what is their proof to it that it's fake? Well, I'll tell you the next opinion brings down this proof. And that's the Rav Sadia Gaon and Rav Hai Gaon. Rav Sadia Gaon, you may know, is normally lumped into the same category as the Rambam. But not always they agree. They're quoted by the Radak. Who's the Radak? Rabbi David? Kimchi. There is a commentary on the Nevi'im predominantly. The Radak brings down this opinion, which is kind of a middle ground between the Rambam and the Ramban. And he says, listen, Ov normally doesn't work. It doesn't. The Rambam's right. People, there are seances and psychics, and it's all some elaborate scheme that they have going on for them. But this time it worked. Because Shaul really needed it. And in Shaul's merit, Shmuel's soul was able to come back to this world. And that's why she screamed. Remember, she screams when she sees Shmuel? She doesn't believe it. Oh my gosh, it's working. You go to a faker and then suddenly it works out. I can't believe it. It surprises them that something that they did worked. And you'll see this in life. You see some people that everything they do is fake, and then suddenly something works for them. It's almost like you caught them by surprise. Like when a person is a professional liar and their lie is believed, it's very exciting for them because it wasn't supposed to work, but it worked. Look, I got out of it. So here, you find that she's screaming, says of Sadigo, the Radak is quoting, because it's not real. But this time it was real. In any case, whatever happens here, I believe that when you read Rabbi Yonatan Halevy, probably he's from the Ramban's camp. Not Rambam, Ramban. In which he believes that, yeah, there is Ov and there is Yidoni and these things work and we're just not allowed to dabble in those things. But they do work. So there's an Ibn Ezra, famous Rabbi Ibn Ezra, in which he writes that all the miracles that happened in Egypt are also just sleight of hand. There is no such thing as negative spiritual forces in the world. There is an entire... What? See, that's us looking at history backwards from our lens.
Including the 10 plagues he's talking about, or he's talking
He's
about
talking about the 10 plagues.
Interesting.
Not the 10 plagues. Not the 10 plagues. He's talking about the
No, meaning he's talking about what the...
with the signs, with the sorcerers of Paul.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, the 10 plagues.
Right, okay.
HaKadosh Baruch Hu can do things.
After.
Yeah, the people can't do things that are magical.
Okay.
In fact, this Rabbi Shmuel Bar Chufni that I quoted to you, his whole opinion, you should know in general, is that man can perform miracles, but only prophets. Even tzaddikim cannot perform miracles. There's an early Islamic belief like this as well. And this was in common. He believed this very much. You don't know who got it from who, but this was an old school Jewish belief in the Havs Legionim. Miracles can be performed, but only by select individuals. Not every Joe Shemo can do a miracle. And not even tzaddikim can do miracles. Only Nevi'im, prophets, they have a certain connection to that which is divine. Here as well, Ibn Ezra writes that all those things were sleight of hand. Don't accept this idea that there's people that can dabble in the mystical and black magic. This is all nonsense. It's what actually happens in the story of the plagues. Okay, that's already a interesting thing. There's a letter from the Rambam that many claim is forged. In fact, the new edition of letters to the Rambam that I have completely erased this letter from there because they claim that it's a forgery. So you put it in there, write forgery, but let me have it. Why did you erase it from my book? I was very upset. And when I went to look for it recently, I couldn't find it. And in there, the Rambam tells his son, Rabbi Avraham, he says, listen to me. Any rabbi that comes from France, stay away from him like you stay away from the plague. He said, we know about them that they brought idolatry into our religion and they brought terrible things into our religion. Now this is an old war of the Rambam against Chachmei Ashkenaz, not just the Ashkenazi ones, but the ones who sat in Europe.
The French are the first to burn his.
What? No, the French were the ones who burned his books.
There's a reason like that.
He says, whenever you study Tanakh, only run to the commentary of Rabbi Avraham ibn Ezra. This is what he says, sits with my heart. And so, some say it's a forgery because how could he say such a thing? If you know the Rambam, you could say that he said such a thing. It's not so far-fetched to believe. It could be historically. I don't know where the Rambam, the Rabbi Avraham, I don't know the interactions. That part might be true. That it doesn't historically work out. But this concept of he agrees with this approach to the Torah. In any case, Rabbi Yonatan Halevy is using these stories to show the king, look, until now I've been talking to you, I'll talk to you about the words of our rabbis on the afterlife, the next world, but he needed to show that there's a solid base in Tanakh for belief in the next world. And someone who wants to say that there isn't is simply skipping out on all these psukim and these stories, and there are many more if you go through the notes in the English book. Next week was HaShamayim. We're talking about Gan Eden, Gehenom in our books. I hope to take a tangent on this topic. A study from Rabbi Yonatan Halevy. It was a Kabbalist in Iraq. His definition, what is Gan Eden, what is Gehenom, what is reincarnations, how do these things work? I won't dwell on this forever because it's one of those topics that not only am I not an expert on, I don't have a Kabbalah from my rabbis on these topics. And more than that, I struggle with how much time one can spend learning about these things. But there's a place to study a little bit about it. So, next week, we'll do that. And we'll be done with the first essay of the Kuzari, after which we will sit down and have a discussion about how we proceed from here. Into the second chapter, or rebranding, things like that. We'll have the conversation next week.
Such an interesting.
Thank you.